I'm here with my friend Travis Griffin of the Game Show Machine, who makes amazing game show software, sells it on Etsy, and knows everything about the world of game shows. Travis, what's up, man?
Not too much, Ryan. Good to see you.
Hey, thanks so much for being on the show. You mentioned right before we started recording that you and I have actually met before. Tell me about the
Yeah.
last time we were hanging out.
So this was about 10 or 11 years ago. I was at the time working at guest relations at Universal Studios Hollywood,
Yes.
the entertainment capital of LA, if they're still using that slogan.
Yeah.
And as part of I want to say like a reward night or something, a guest services team and the guest relations team got together and we did a trivia night. And you are MC.
Yeah, I think I did that two or three times. Shout out to my friend Julian Manriquez, who actually hosts events for me to this day. And he worked there at the time. Julian actually let me take my wife to the Harry Potter land, I think the cold open, like the week before it actually opened. And
Yeah.
we got to go on all the rides and go to Honeydukes and all that stuff. It was really, really cool. So thank you, Julian, for making that happen. And here we are all these years later with
Yeah.
some more guests from guest services there. And what was the ride? Did you run a certain ride there at Universal?
No, I was in guest relations.
Oh,
So
guest
it's
relations. Yeah.
I lost and found, guest complaints, guest compliments. It was if you've heard the phrase crap rolls downhill, we were in the valley.
There you go. Can you give me a couple examples of maybe working in that area of guest relations with Universal Studios where you got maybe a great compliment and then maybe a huge complaint? Does anything jump to mind?
The For huge complaint, the only thing that really jumps to mind is Halloween Horror Nights as a whole. It
Oh,
was
there you go.
if anybody got touched, got looked at the wrong way, like they came right to us.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of like positive interaction, though, there was an incident. I believe it was with the Chinese guest that had lost their wallet, but it had about $3,000 or $4,000 cash in it.
Wow.
Came to us, and per our rules, like we had whoever brought it in, we brought our boss, we counted out the money, made sure it was all there. We walked it over to the central vault, logged it in. About 2 hours later, the tour guide came in with the guest, panicked, and they said, "No, we've got it." I took it from the vault, got it. We counted it out, took him back privately because there was so much money. Counted
Yeah.
it out. It was all there, and he was just immensely thankful.
Wow.
Didn't
That is a
tip, but he
lot.
was immensely thankful.
Yeah. Yeah, he should have tipped at least 100.
Yeah,
That's a lot of money to just carry around an amusement park, do you think?
yeah. Well, with all of our foreign guests, that was par for the course.
Yeah, I guess that's true. If you're in a different country, you're just kind of hoping that you got enough for everything you want to do.
Yeah.
Awesome. And tell me a little bit about your background in game shows because I've come across you on Etsy several times. I started putting games on Etsy about a year ago, so I was checking out other Etsy pages, and I kept coming across yours, and I kept going, man, there's that game. Oh, there's that game. Oh my God, there's
Mhm.
that game. And there's
Yeah.
so many games on your Etsy page. I'm like, I thought I knew a lot about game shows. I thought I knew a lot of game shows. You have like recreations of a single season Canadian game show from the 80s, I think, on your page.
Yeah.
So it's like something as specific as that, and then something as broad as like, like a Wheel of Fortune clone. Tell
Mhm.
me about your background in just game shows in general.
So professionally, game shows, my career started in 2016.
Hmm,
I got a random call in February from a producer that was doing a run through for GSN and needed display software, and my name was being bandied about as, oh no, this guy creates software, he's good at it, and someone else that did what I do was not available, so I was the second call.
gotcha.
Um, so I did the demo software for him, worked for about like 6 7 months on this project, ended up getting hired as an associate producer for Idiot Test for GSN. And
Wow, with
then,
Ben Glebe?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
actually, I worked the last season of that, so season four.
Hmm.
And then the show that I was working on got picked up and became Emo Genius on GSN. So the
Ah,
emoji game show. And anything that you see display software in that show was very much rooted in the displays that I came up with for that demo software.
wow.
From there, once that show wrapped, the electronics firm that was servicing it needed a guy full time. So I started working for CBS Electronics, which was housed at CBS Television City.
Uh-huh.
And I've serviced at last count about 35 to 40 different shows in the last 8 years,
Wow. And so they
almost
call
nine
you, and
years.
when you say service, does that mean you're checking equipment that they use to run the game show?
No, I'm running the show.
Oh, you're
So
running the show. That
the
when you say
way,
servicing, you're doing
yeah,
the software that makes the show happen.
Yeah, I'm bringing in like computer systems. We have a separate programmer that makes everything work. I bring in the equipment, run all the cables, and then I sit at a computer backstage for 10 days, 6 shows a day, just clicking buttons and giving away loads of money. That's
Wow.
the way I concisely describe my job is without me, it's a talk show.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And
Yeah.
so in 2016, you had an interest in game shows. You were making software and things like that
I
and
had
designing things.
I taught myself how to program in Adobe Flash specifically. This started in college. So back in 2004, I started my first program and I had a game show fan club back then. I've been interested in game shows since I was an infant. Like
Gotcha.
I was 6 months old and watching Price is Right.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but started programming, developed a club, and just in the last few years, I thought, well, wait a minute, I can actually make my software make me money.
Yeah.
So I put it on Etsy thinking, oh, I might get one or two bites here and there. It's been a little over 3 years. I have almost 4,000 sales. So
Wow.
it's
That
it's
is quite a
been,
number.
and I've been a star seller on Etsy for 26 months running.
That's so cool. I just bought
Yeah.
some stuff the other day. I bought the
Yeah.
Lingo software. I bought the Price is Right software, and I have been messing with those over the last few days and figuring out how I can use those at some of my live nights to kind
Mhm.
of just spice it up. I do just standard trivia with PowerPoint, so I show the questions and we go over the answers. We collect the answer sheets, but usually in the middle of the show, I do something like Name That Tune, where I play songs and have one member of two different teams come up to battle and name the song before the other person.
Yeah.
But I'm always looking for those little extra mini games to kind of get people excited and just to switch it up. I'm one of
Yeah.
those guys that I like doing the same thing over and over again, hosting
Mhm.
trivia, we'll say,
Yeah.
but I always like to make it slightly different because I'll go nuts if it's the same exact thing every time.
That's
Uh,
fair.
and one of your coolest things that I got is the game show machine, right? Is that what it's called?
Yes,
Where
that
it's
is a format I've been working on since 2007, I believe. I believe it's 18 years trying to perfect that. The
wow.
version that's up on Etsy now is one step below where I want it. The version that I use is where I want it. I may post that up later and I'll send you an update once it's
Oh, cool.
perfectly finalized.
Yeah.
But that was based on I used to go to game show conventions. There was only about four or five of them. This is early 2000s.
Okay.
And there was a gentleman there that did what he called the game show round, which was different front game, different bonus round. And we were jokingly call it the game show machine. And he got really emphatic about it. It's like, no, it's the game show round. It's like, okay, then I'll take the name.
Yeah. There you
And
go.
I just started like reworking it and molding it. And my sister actually helped me create a solid format, which is the version that's up now.
Right. And that version is you're basically playing, is it 5 games, sort of head to head style? And
You're playing, yeah, it's two teams of three. Everybody and all the games are different game show bonus rounds. Because
right.
what's the most exciting part of a game show? It's the bonus round.
Yeah,
It's the
most
gameplay
definitely.
can't get exciting, but it's the bonus round where you make the $10,000, you make the 25,000. So it's like, okay, let's make all the bonus rounds their own format. So the format that I have now is both teams compete in the same bonus round, different. So if they're both competing in Pyramid's winner circle, they each get a different stack.
Mhm.
Whoever does better gets a bonus. And then highest score at the end of 4 rounds plays the ultimate bonus round, which currently I have a toss between either Winning Lines Wonderwall or Price is Right's Lucky Seven. It's
Oh,
like
very
we're either
cool.
playing for a fake $100,000 or a fake car.
Yeah. And within the producing of that software, if someone was running it, they can choose which games of the how many is it? 60 different games? 80 different?
In the machine, it's 50.
50. So there's 50 different games that could come up and you can randomize it or you can kind of force select which games are chosen to play, right?
Yeah, the software makes it look random, but we as producers were like, no, we're presetting the show.
Yeah, that's
We're
right.
putting together the 6 games that work the best together.
That's very, very cool. And what is maybe your favorite game in that 50 of all those bonus rounds? Personally, what do you like the best?
I'm always a big fan of Pyramid's Winner Circle because it is the most exciting 60 seconds in television. It has
Yeah,
been since 73 when it premiered.
sure.
And Pyramid Front Game is great, but it's like you want to get to the topping. You want to get to the winner circle. And like I watched so many winner circles just to make sure my software was perfect. Just not even the functionality, but the look of the screen itself. So
Yeah. And what is the average amount of time it goes into making any of these games that you sell on Etsy? That one obviously very involved because it's so many
yeah.
different games. But let's say you're taking a single game show and
Mhm.
kind of putting your spin on it to then put on Etsy. How long does that take you?
Depends on the complexity of the game. For instance, the one that you referenced, Pitfall, the one season Canadian show from the 80s,
Yeah.
that took me about 4 or 5 days,
Wow.
working about 4 or 5 hours a day, because I was actually doing that while I was taping a season of 25 words or less.
Oh,
I'd have my
gotcha.
computer on one side of the table, program, and it's like, oh, we're back from commercial. Okay, we roll back over, run an
Yeah.
act of the show, roll back over, keep working.
Wow.
But something,
Multitasking.
yeah, but something like Press Your Luck, that took about 2 years just to
Gotcha.
make sure everything was perfect.
And when you get hired for these game shows, is it just you're just an independent contractor that they call in to do that specific job?
I now am. Yeah, I was being hired through Television City Studios, but now once I left California in September, I'm sort of my own guy. So I'm
Gotcha.
doing another season of 25 Words or Less coming up in May, and then potentially one for GSN, and then I'm going to leave it behind actually.
And what was your big migration plan to go from California, from coast to coast, from California to the Atlanta area? Was it just trying something new, time for a move? What was your big motivation to move?
Two things. It was one, trying something new because
Hmm.
I was starting to get real sick of LA.
Yeah.
And the other part of it was all of my shows were moving to Atlanta. So
Oh,
it just
gotcha.
made it easier and cheaper on production. They wouldn't have to spend per diem travel costs or anything like that. It's like, no, I'm an Atlanta local. I'll help
Yeah.
you get the tax break and save you some money in the long run.
Oh, that's awesome. And what are some of your favorite things around Atlanta to do now that you've been there a few months?
Um, Boy, I live in Buckhead, which is sort of north of Midtown. So
Hmm.
that's always kind of a lively area. It's one of the wealthier parts of town.
Okay.
But just going to Atlantic Station to do some shopping, like just go to Target is fun. The Lenox Square Mall and Phipps Plaza Mall, always good to walk around. I haven't done much exciting in LA outside of just like, you know, just go shopping or anything like that. But walking around the mall is always fun to do.
That's honestly one of my favorite things. And my wife makes fun of me a lot because I'll be like, ooh, there's a mall in this town. We have to stop at it. And she goes, you've been to a lot of malls. And I go, but there's something about a mall. I just love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, my dad, before he died, would go to the mall every day and just sit in the Starbucks in the middle of the food court area, and he
Mhm.
knew everybody that worked at every store, everybody that worked at every little kiosk. And when I would go meet him for coffee, they'd be like, "You're Tom's son." Like that was like a thing he liked to do in probably his last 10 years of life. And I think that's part of it. But even as a kid, I love which I think you probably do too, since you love game shows, that feeling of just nostalgia, like things that you
Mhm.
grew up with or got a glance at as a kid and then investigated more and more as you got older. And you're like, I think I
Yeah,
like this very specific thing.
yeah.
I noticed that you added wrestlers to the game called, what is it called? Hugh?
Phew.
Is that the name of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe Travis is a wrestling fan. Am I right?
I am. Yeah, I gear more
Very good.
towards AEW than WWE, but I will like I'm not a full tribalist. I'll
Sure.
watch anything that's either really, really good or really terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you're in wrestling country, Atlanta, if you want to go to a lot of live shows and things, huh?
Yeah, the home of the Rhodes clan, yeah, and the birthplace of WCW. Yeah,
How
the
about it? I've
yeah,
actually, as we record, I'm wearing my barbershop window t-shirt. I just realized.
very nice. Yeah,
And I'll be going to Mania 41 in Vegas. So I'm excited about that. That should be a lot of fun.
nice. That should be fun.
But when you are creating this software in
Mhm.
2016, you started doing it for the first time.
Mhm.
Is it something that is really hard for you to do, or your brain just after you learn that programming, you're like, I can make software of anything?
It's basically that. Like once I get the idea in my head, I'll just think about it and be like, okay, how can I boil this down into code? Like even something as simplistic as something like tic-tac-toe. It's
Mhm.
very simple to watch on TV, very simple to explain, but telling a computer how to do it,
Yeah.
different story. Um, and like I'll have a finished product for a year or two, and then I'll look at it again. It's like, no, I can make this look better. I can make this run smoother. So just last year, I put everything through sort of a refreshment process
Yeah.
where it was like changing the look, updating graphics, even tic-tac-toe. I put sort of a better background on it. That was really the biggest refreshment for that one. So even though I have like over 80 things in the shop, I'm still constantly refreshing them just to make sure they're still running up to stuff. And even people will still find bugs in my stuff. Like I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. So I'll get an email from somebody that I've got a constant customer in Spain that is emailing me about once a month, just picking out bugs that I frankly missed. And it's like,
Sure.
great, I'm glad you caught it. I'll fix it, send them a new one, and update the shop.
That's amazing. I have that kind of relationship with CrowdPur. Do you ever use CrowdPur? Have you heard of that?
I've not, no.
So CrowdPur is a smartphone-based buzz-in software. So very similar to Kahoot, but much more sophisticated specifically to host like a trivia game.
Mm-hmm.
And there's great leaderboards, there's great graphics. I've never had a problem with it. Knock on wood. I've used it close to 3,000 times. And
Yeah.
I really really enjoy it. But I know it so well that if like something seems a little off or like a little bug pops up, I can also message. So I'm like your customer in Spain for that specific software.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, I'm so excited to check out. I think I bought 5 or 6 things from you the other day and kind of perused them very quickly. Threw them up on a second screen so I could see what that other window looks like, the production, the
The
window that you
control
control
panel.
everything from, and then the live window. And so now that I've kind of checked them out, I'm gonna figure out how to incorporate those or actually use those to maybe run complete corporate shows and things like that. So what you do,
Great.
I think, is very valuable to anybody that hosts events, hosts weddings, bar trivia nights, any of the stuff that sort of in that hosting realm, if you need
Mhm.
that kind of activity, very hard to come by. And sometimes you find software that's like really cumbersome to use, and you're like, I can't even really use this or teach someone else to use this. So it kind of goes in a different pile. But I think your stuff is really well done and very clear. Every piece of software from you comes with like a show Bible and a games PDF that explains everything that you need to know to run it, which I think is really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I tried to make it as easy as possible for anyone to run, whether they be a nature trivia host or just a fan. Or I've noticed a lot of my customers are teachers because they're
Yeah,
using these for classroom activities, which
sure.
is great. So I tried to make my technical manuals, and the technical manual is written to be very easy to follow. But the rules Bible is almost written like a legal document because those are
Yeah,
the actual rules of play. So
sure.
yeah, so that way there's no question. It's like, oh, how do I play this? It's in the book.
And now, do you ever get hired by, let's say, someone like me who's like, I have this idea for a game. Can you make me some version of this thing? Is that something you
Mhm.
do, like sort of a custom project?
Yeah, absolutely. I do custom stuff all the time. My rate varies. It's hourly.
Hmm.
But depending on like the complexity of the game, like I'll give you a full bid and just I'll give you a full bid. I'll ask you for a deadline. And if you have a look in mind, and if not, I'll leave it to my own devices and then go from there. But I've done actually one of the products in my shop, Trivia Masters, was a custom build request that the creator gave me permission to just put it in the shop. And
Oh, that's really cool.
it's been a decent seller because it's just a generic quiz program with questions on screen. And
Yeah.
then I sort of ripped that one apart and made it buzzer grid, where it's like, no, it's just the lockout, the score, and a clock if you need it. No
Gosh,
questions on screen. You do your own thing, but you have up to an 8 player lockout system.
that's very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know so many. I met all these great game show hosts, trivia hosts, whatever you want to call them,
Mhm.
at this cool sort of first of its kind meetup in Florida at my friend Jonathan Page's. He has a strip mall location called that game show place, and so you can book
Mhm.
it and go do a big team building event or a bachelor party or something fun there if you're all in the game shows. And he was talking about he goes we one of the things we kind of touched on. He's like we need somebody who can take an idea that we have and make it for us. He goes, that's really hard to find because it's such a specific niche job, and you could post that on something like Fiverr, I guess, but I don't think you're going to get the results of a Travis Griffin on something like Fiverr. What do you think?
I will say this: pass my information along
Yeah,
because
I sure will.
once September comes around, I'm going to be unemployed. So yeah,
Yeah.
and I will be actually moving to Florida around Labor Day weekend,
Oh, how
and
about that?
I'm looking to move about an hour outside of Tampa. I've seen the website. I've looked at it a lot, and like, wonder if I could do anything with them. So it's like, yeah, pass my information along.
That's
Absolutely.
that's a perfect connection. Yeah, he would you could do it from anywhere, but if you were down there and he can meet you in person, I'm sure he'd love that. So I'll make sure he sees this video.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience. Have you ever been on a game show?
Three.
Oh, what are those three? Can you talk about those?
I'll work backwards from the worst to the best. No, I actually scratch that. Four.
Okay.
I was on Millionaire, actually one of the last seasons in Millionaire. So Chris Harrison was my host.
Okay.
Won 5 grand.
Wow.
I was on a very short-lived NBC show called Who's Still Standing.
Okay.
It was basically Wheel of Fortune combined with Russian roulette. So it was
Okay.
one person against 10 strangers. I was one of the strangers and I got dropped through a hole in the floor twice.
That's amazing.
Um, I was on the GSN version of One versus 100 as a mob member. I think I
Okay.
only banked maybe $500 over the course of 40 shows. And
Nice.
then my first one, my best one, I was contestant on The Price is Right, season 32 premiere, so 2003. I won a hot tub and a Cadillac.
Yeah. Wow. Did you actually take the prizes or just the value?
Took the prizes. That back
Wow.
in back in that day, you could not take the value. It was either you take the prizes or you don't take the prizes.
Wow. And do you remember what the taxes you paid on the Cadillac were?
Oh boy. So the taxes on those prizes, because they were considered earned income, actually prevented me from getting any student grants
Oh
for the
no.
next year at school. So I had to take out student loans that I'm still paying off.
Oh my God.
But the car ended up being, I had to pay tax, title, license, and fees, tax, title, license, and insurance when I picked up the car because they delivered the car to my local dealership. I had to
Uh-huh.
pick it up. The dealership said you can leave the car with us. We'll buy it for 32.5, or you can drive it off the lot. And I said, I've already taken out the loan for $3,500. Give me the car. So
Wow.
I took the car, drove it around for a couple of weeks, took my grandmother to the grocery store. She loved it. And then there was a dealership close by that wanted to buy it for 33,000 because they just wanted the story. And I said, 33 is my lucky number. Cut me a check.
That's very, very cool. I like that you ended up, I feel like, on top after all that. That's really cool.
Ab- Absolutely, yeah.
And did you hold on to the hot tub?
Gave the hot tub to my mother. We bought a little storage building that we were going to use it. We were going to use it like a cabana, basically. Never turned it on, never filled it. She ended up actually selling it. Sold it to a friend of hers for the retail price because we never turned it on, so there was no depreciation. So she's like, "How much should we sell it for?" I said, $26.95.
You knew the exact dollar amount. That's how you
Yeah,
want it. I love that. That's
yeah,
so cool. I went to a taping of one of those casino versions, like the Price is Right live tour,
yeah.
just this past Sunday. I'd never been to one of those. I also loved watching the Price is Right as a kid, and I loved it
Mm,
so much. I used to keep a notebook in the summer, probably like fifth, sixth, seventh grade, of everybody who bid, what they did in the showcase,
yeah,
all their names. So it'd be like Alejandro, a new laundry machine or whatever. I don't know
yeah.
why I wrote it all down, but I'm like, this is important. Someone's going to want to see this. It was sort of like um, creating like a wiki page for Price is Right, I think before it existed,
Yeah.
but just in a notebook in my house. But, I had not watched the show probably since high school. And going on Sunday, I'm like, oh man, should I even register to go on stage? Because I was going with some friends who had like an extra ticket. And
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I'll just watch. And I'm like, nah, I'm like, I'll do it. So I didn't get on stage or on Contestants Row or anything, but
Mm,
it was very exciting and very like nerve-wracking because you're in this room with 2,000 screaming people that are like very excited about the Price is Right. And it
yeah.
was pretty sold out. And it's a brand new Hard Rock Casino in Bristol, Tennessee.
Mhm.
And every time they're like, let's get some more contestants, I got this feeling where I'm like, I might be on a game show.
Yeah.
So that was worth the ticket price alone for sure.
Who
But
was your host?
oh, I forget his name. I had never seen him before, but
Is
they
it
showed him in clips on a lot of different things.
was it
Um,
Todd Newton?
Maybe he was covered in
Okay.
tattoos.
That's Todd.
He had
Yeah.
like hand tattoos, neck tattoos. But in
Mhm.
the clips that they showed of him, he was much younger and had no tattoos, it looked like.
Yeah,
So
he
like,
he
here he
didn't start
comes.
getting he didn't start getting tattoos until like maybe 5, 6 years ago. But yeah,
Gotcha. When he came out, I'm like, is that the same guy? And he was a great host. He did,
yeah,
I went back 2 nights ago and watched like an episode of Price is Right from recently with Drew Carey.
mm,
And I'm like, what this guy had to do in front of 2,000 people in a casino was
mm,
way harder than what Drew Carey has to do for 200 people or whatever.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
where everything's kind of, it's mostly just about playing the games and a little bit of banter. This guy
mm,
had to create, he had to do a lot of crowd work and get people like laughing and excited, and it was more interviewing and
yeah,
stuff. So that was a little bit more fun to watch, I think, than even the actual TV show.
yeah,
But there were a couple bait and switch things that I didn't like. It seemed like on the showcase version of that show, they showed all this cool stuff, but you didn't win that stuff. You only won like a single thing. Does
yeah,
that make sense?
yeah, it does.
And so I think a lot of people were like, that guy just won a car. And I'm like, they didn't say he won a car. They just had him bid on what the car was as
Yeah,
part of that showcase. And I think he just won a trip to San Diego. And they said the
yeah,
beautiful beaches of San Diego. And I'm like, I don't know how beautiful those beaches are, but sometimes they're okay, I guess. But yeah,
yeah.
it was a very cool experience. And if they ever did a wheel version like at that casino, I would do anything to get on that stage. That's the game I feel the most confident that I could like win some money at, which
Mhm.
I think a lot of people would probably say that. But
I've auditioned for Wheel of Fortune a couple of times,
yeah.
and the funny part about that, my last audition was about maybe a year or two before I started at Television City, which Television City Studios services Wheel of Fortune, or did at the time. They
Yeah.
ran all the electronics. I got a call from the casting department offering me, a spot 6 weeks after I'd started working there. And
Oh, yeah.
I had to say, I said, I can't because you guys know my boss. And they said, who? And I named my boss, and they're like, oh, you work for them now. I'm like, yeah, I can't. I'm ineligible. They said, well, thanks for letting us know.
I had a similar situation where I worked on Minute to Win It with Apollo Ono in
Yeah.
2014, I think it was, maybe 13 or 14. And it
Yeah.
was like a 40 episode season, and I was a production assistant. So just cleaning up garbage, picking up his lunch, stuff like that. Really fun
Yeah.
experience. Very cool to see behind the scenes of a game show and how that works, and how they hype up the crowd, and the crowd warm up guy. Like all of that was a very cool experience. And then a couple years later, I think it was 3 years later, I
Mm.
auditioned to be on a game show and I got it. And I forget the name of the show, but you argue over the answers with like three other people. And
Divided.
yeah, I think that was what it was. I don't know if that was the name of it when I auditioned for it though, but that was the concept.
Yeah.
And I don't like auditioning for anything, whether it's acting or anything on television. I always feel like it goes terrible. But I did
Mm.
feel like that. I'm like, oh, I could win this game show. I would be fun to watch on this game show. Like I was really confident about it. And then they
Yeah.
called me. They're like, here, you got it. And I was like, sweet. So I go, I get my clothes, wardrobe approved and everything. I'm literally about to walk onto the stage to take my segment.
Mm.
And somebody that worked on Minute to Win It like walked by and was like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, I'm on this show. They're like, you can't be on this show. You worked on Minute to Win It 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm like, I thought that was well past the time, especially as a production assistant. And
Yeah.
I think legally, like paperwork wise, it was, but they still didn't let me be on the show because that person saw me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a bummer. And that made me go, I'm never doing this again.
Mm.
But now it's been like, over 10 years. I feel like I could get on a show, maybe a show that's not on Game Show Network just to be safe. But
Yeah. It's probably for the best. Yeah. But yeah,
probably for the best.
your eligibility should be wide open.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And something like Wheel of Fortune, is not specific to Game Show Network. So I feel like if I ever get to go on a show, that's the one I'm going to try and get on.
Yeah.
Uh, but very, very cool, Travis. Thank you so much for your time today. Tell people where we can find you online, if you have a personal website, or if you just want to direct them to the Game Show Machine on Etsy.
No personal website at all. My online presence is basically my Etsy shop. It's gameshowstudio.etsy.com. Currently running a 25% off sale until the end of the month. I'll do sales quite frequently. I'm actually working on a new project right now to go into the shop. I'm not going to say what it is,
Oh,
but I will say it was prime time on ABC, hosted by Mike Greenberg. That's all I'm going to say.
very good.
Game Show Geeks will know exactly what I'm talking about. But that should be up hopefully by the end of the month. And anytime when I put a new item in the shop, I'll run another sale just in celebration. Like, hey, there's a new thing. Everything's on sale.
That's
Um,
awesome.
But
And I
yeah, no,
noticed that you do hangouts sometimes, like virtual live YouTube shows. How often does that happen?
boy, once a month if I'm in the right headspace. Like
Yeah.
for me, like mental health is a big thing, and
Yep.
if I'm just not in the right headspace, I don't do it. But I don't know. I'm feeling kind of dry, like I haven't done one in a while. I'm currently not home, so I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do one until I'm back in front of my rig. Um, but yeah, likely next month I'll do probably another tutorial or two, and my tutorials also involve my Discord as part of my shtick. So like I'll do the tutorial and then I'll bring in Discord people and we'll actually play a couple of games of it, whatever I'm tutorializing.
Fantastic. And yeah, sometimes those live shows I've seen you do 3, 4 hours at a time and you go
Yeah,
through, half a dozen games and people are playing live. Very cool videos to see. And you can
yeah.
see all those on your YouTube page under the live panel. Because if you go to your videos page, it shows you have no videos, but it's because
Right.
they're all live under the live section, which
They're
I
all
noticed.
under live stream and it's YouTube. The username is Game Show Machine, same as my Instagram, and my Instagram will have links to everything.
That's awesome. And where can people email you if they are interested in maybe having you create some software for them to use?
GameShowMachine@gmail.com.
Awesome. Travis, thank you so much for your time today, man. Good luck
Sure.
with all the stuff you're working on. And I can't wait to use your games at my next live event.
Yeah, send me pictures. I always love to see how my software is being used.
Will do, buddy. Have a good one.
So thank you. You too.
All right.